here, so I request the audience on a Sunday morning. Not the warmest of days, but I think this will do. The man with us needs no introduction. He is India's first chess grandmaster, 5-time world champion, the FIDE world champion from 2000 to 2002, and the undisputed world champion from 2007 to 12, recipient of the Rajiv Gandhi Khel Ratna Award and the Padma Vibhushan, Vishy Anand. And welcome to Toronto, bienvenue of Canada. Thank you for taking time out from your busy schedule at the Candidates Tournament for us. Without further ado, with your permission, we can start the question and answer session. We've heard of your interest in astronomy and math. Can you tell us how it all started?
Astronomy is clearer. At some point, I don't know how, there was this copy of Cosmos knocking around the house. So I would read it. And astronomy is the easiest subject to get into because all you need is some star pictures and a little bit of imagination when they describe the distances and of your set, you're hooked. So that was there from childhood. Maths, like all people, I found it, once I didn't have to write exams, I found my interest in the subject went up a lot. And again, it's one or two interesting topics. I think for me, when I was reading about codes or Pharma or something, then you kind of get into the subject. But I'm a very casual maths fan. I mean, essentially my maths is still what I learned at school, but I like the subject. It's nice to have a lot of questions that are pending from school that you can answer very easily. Let's put it that way.
At many points in your early career, many of your rivals have said, "Oh, Anand is a nice guy, but he's not world champion material." Was there any time in your chess playing career that you wanted to throw it all away and walk away from chess?
No, it was never that bad. I mean, it's one thing to want to be world champion. It's another thing to want to stop playing chess because you might not become one. I never got to the second. I still like playing chess. I consider myself pretty lucky that I can make a living like that. But I didn't really want to walk away. But there are times when you resent the implication of that sentence, and you think, well, are these guys so great? They're not so strong either, and you start to hit back like that. I don't think I ever really wanted to walk away. There are several moments when I wanted to walk away, but that was more after bad results. And again, it's like saying you want to kill yourself. It's not really something you want to act on. It's just that moment, the last thing you want to do is to play chess. But you know that in 1 month it will be back. So, not really is my answer.
To quote you, you were neither bankrolled by the Soviets, nor were you supported with the powers to be. You were just a middle class Tambran, the meeting boy from a country where people until a couple of decades before you were playing their own variations of chess. How did you handle situations that were financially and probably politically challenging in chess?
I was lucky, I think. The things were just right. My parents were middle class, as you say. My dad worked in the railways, but that was also some privilege. They could support me when they needed to, and the railways is a very good environment in many ways. My mother knew the game, which is how I got started in the first place. And I was lucky at school that I was just in school when schools started to take the idea of sports seriously, and they liked schools like seeing their name in the papers. And things like that. I easily imagine that 5 or 10 years, if I had been 5 or 10 years earlier, it might not have been so smooth. And then when do we hesitate? We hesitate in 10th. When you have to pick your stream, you hesitate in 12th because you have to pick your college, and then you have to pick a job. When I was in 10th standard, I became a national champion. In 12th standard, I became a grandmaster. And so at each stage, it seemed like I had a confirmation that, what's the biggest challenge? Whether something is financially possible. I knew I could play chess, but would the financial situation be unpredictable? And it seemed like at every stage, the confirmation was very positive. Once I knew I was a grandmaster, I knew I'd make a living from chess, and I wouldn't have to think every morning, how am I going to make some money? And when I finished, I did my BCom anyway. Don't ask me why, but it was a time when I thought that you have to go to college because that's where you grow as a person. You meet people. I still think that's true, but nowadays it seems there are many alternatives. You can quit much earlier and still get to meet enough people and so on. I still thought college was important to go to, so I didn't particularly make an effort to skip it. But after my BCom, I was already number 5 in the world, and then it was clear that I could not go for anything further. I didn't have time to study after that. I would have to be full time.
Follow-up question on that. So, you've had it fairly easy making decisions at crucial points. Not everybody can get that lucky. What would your advice be to youngsters of today when they face a dilemma between choosing between academics and sports? How would you advise them to go about it?
The circumstances are very different. I was growing up in an era, and I was thinking when stable careers were much more the norm. The reason parents said was, parents would say to you, become a doctor, become an engineer, because those were very stable jobs. Yes. Now, even in those fields, you might have to flip around a lot. It's in the right circumstances, it can be nice. You get to try out a lot of different things, but in other circumstances, it can also be. And now, in general, you should be used to the idea of, you should be ready to have multiple career shifts. Or so it appears to me. So the current generation is dealing with a slightly different, but their possibilities have expanded as well. So many of them will be able to, market themselves, build themselves in multiple ways. There are many more streams. There are many more viable career opportunities. Nothing with bedrock certainty, but you can do something for a while and you can skip it for a while and then you can come back to it later. That seems to be the norm just as much in India as in anywhere else. So I still tell them it's good to go to school. Don't think about dropping school, because even if you remove school, you will not spend all that time that you would have spent at school on chess. It's not possible. We can only study a subject for so many hours a day, and then you have to do other things. So don't see them as in conflict, but I don't really know what to say to them, because you realize that the background has moved so much that you're not sure what your advice you're giving. I don't want to get too much gyan, but I think I just mentioned something sensible and leave it at that.
Thanks. Between Tehran and Mexico, you were always world champion, but there was always a question mark around it. So how did you handle this phase of your life? It's quite a long one, it was a 7-year period. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Badly. It's one of those things you learn to tune out, but nonetheless you don't succeed in tuning out. Essentially this was because there were 2 chess associations at that point. So there were 2 world champions, which meant that people will always say, you're the this champion. And you understand, in every sport, the title world champion should not come with an asterisk or a big footnote. World champion should be exactly as described, right? So it was quite irritating to have people, yes, you're a world champion, but I don't like this format, I don't agree with that. I didn't ask your opinion. So it would it would be like that, and then journalists would frame the question in such a way, but you still have to prove something. And you learn to tune it out. It's not like it bothered me on a day-to-day basis. Also, at some point you expect it, but it irritates you. You feel you played the cycle you could, and you did what you could, and you still have to keep on answering. So that was a chip on my shoulder for a while. Probably I realized how big a chip it was when I actually became, funnily enough, when we least expected it, the chess world reunified. The two federations merged, and it worked out well. So when I was going to play in Mexico in 2007, I knew that if I won, I was going to be undisputed world champion for the first time in my life. And when it happened, that felt good. But there was still one more asterisk, which I didn't win in a match format, and there are some people who consider only that legitimate, because historically that's always been the norm. And in 2008, I was going to play Karnik, and I remember being particularly eager to play the match. I don't know if this was a factor. I think I liked chess at that point, and I wanted more of it. But maybe this was a factor in the background. And when I won that match convincingly, I think it's the absence of something. For a few months, the interviews would not go off in this slightly silly path. And then I realized, oh, actually, it's over. I'm not. It's like you come out of jail and you realize, actually, there's no warden asking me, and I'm free the whole day. It's like that. You feel a bit freer. In this case, the absence of something slightly unpleasant was the way I realized that that particular bridge had been crossed, and then very quickly, within a year or two, you get used to that. And after that, I've not thought about it. But there was a point when I found it very, very irritating.
What, according to you, was the single biggest turning point in your chess playing career?
Probably there isn't really one. I think when I first broke through into the top of world chess, I felt I'd been given a ticket to play in this world I'd been dreaming of, and that was a very big deal. When I met some of my my best trainers, and I got to work on new ways of doing things, that was also, it felt like doors were opening. Then when my wife and me got to this arrangement where she started managing all my affairs, and I realized I could focus much more on chess. Again, there was this feeling of something new happening. But, biggest turning point, I would know to pinpoint one. And in fact, my favorite moments will not necessarily be the biggest ones. There are small ones you treasure more because there's some private thing going on, and maybe you like someone, maybe really dislike someone, and you beat them, and that feels special for a long time. The tournament was not important, but it just felt very good. It's a mixture, yeah. Officially, of course, the World Championships are very important, but there are lots of other moments I remember just as fondly. Even school tournaments and things like that. You remember for a very, very long time for exactly the same reason. So that's how it.
Okay. You've said that you remember airport boarding gates by chess opening moves. Have you ever missed a flight?
That's too strong, but what happened once was we were about to miss our flight. Our flight from Madrid to Frankfurt came late, which means we were in danger of missing the famous Lufthansa connection in Frankfurt. And the gate was B48. So there's B44 to 48, there's one circular thing there in Frankfurt. And I mentioned to my wife, by the way, that's the Taimano variation, because I knew the ECO code. And she looked at me as if I was mad. You're about to miss the flight. The thing is, I'd already given up. I knew we were not going to catch the flight. She wanted to make the token run anyway, but I didn't see why. And so I was being flippant about it, and she was still taking the task of catching that flight very seriously. And well, anyway, this remark didn't go down well. That's fair to say, but Many of my favorite ECO codes I can remember. So I remember all the B series. But if you give me some E code, I might not particularly associate with anything. E or D is not my specialty. But then again, D44 I would remember and so on. But what Frankfurt is always going on A or B?
B usually.
B are India flights and A is to the US. So yes, but I will often come up with some strange connection to chess at exactly the wrong moment.
What is one aspect of your routine that you feel has helped you the most?
To the extent I get good sleep, that is 80%. So by good sleep, I don't just mean the act of sleeping, but I mean it's very important that I'm not tossing and turning at night, that I'm not thinking of the previous day's events in chess. I'm not thinking of previous day's events in anything, that I'm actually able to sleep well. And there's I put some effort into that. So sometimes at night I'll go to the gym for a while, run and things, where I'm really tired and I can break this thing. Because sometimes if you don't disconnect, the game can linger on for a while. Then suddenly at 2 a.m. you wake up and you think, oh damn, I missed that move. So it's important to. I recently, generally during the pandemic and all, I started doing a lot more yoga and stretching, and I feel that helps a lot. But generally, I've had fairly sensible habits, at least not healthy, but always fairly sensible and do crazy stuff. So as my sleep got better and when I identify certain situations which I do badly or I tend to do badly, and then next time I think, well, now I'm getting to this place, I'm aware of it, and I'm going to do it slightly differently this time. I always feel those were very beneficial.
Which chess piece do you most relate to?
It's probably like asking a fish if it likes water, but most people say that when they think of me, they think of a knight.
Okay. This question is from Harsha. Chess is a sport with such longevity. Teenagers to 70-year-olds play it. How does one ensure peak performance over such a long career? How do you keep things fresh and keep up the innovation and learning?
Not anymore. Now, I recently looked up, maybe 6 years ago, I looked up the world rankings in 1983. And then I took the average age and the median age and so on, and I saw there was, if you remove the oldest and youngest, it was like 21, and otherwise, it was 36 and 34 or something like that. And in 2016, it was already 22 and 21. So you see a clear change. When I was growing up, you could be a top 10 player in the world in your mid-30s, and you peaked late 30s, 40s, and then so you had a lot of time to build up experience and bring it to the table. Now, you're being deluged with experience all the time. So you grow much faster, even if chaotically, but you grow much faster. And now many top players say, oh, I can't see myself playing beyond my mid-30s. I can't see myself playing, not being in the top, just playing. And so the cycle is sped up. To the extent we look like most physical sports, and so the longevity isn't there. You can still be associated and work around the sport, certainly, but that's true in other sports as well. It's just you can't do the full package. So, but whatever sport, whatever age, whatever field, I think you have to be willing to learn something new and to do something slightly uncomfortable, things that you dismissed before. And that's the way to keep going.
This question is from Pranav. What is your pre-game ritual?
I like to sleep before a game. So I'll try to finish my lunch 2 hours at least before the game, before the round starts. Uh, Quite simply, I don't want to be drowsy when the game starts. And if I finish my lunch then, I can still have a nap for 30 minutes to an hour and then ready and go to the game. That's my preferred thing because I'm not going to be hungry during the game, but at the same time I've managed to sleep and I won't be. There are other people like Kasparov always said it didn't matter if he was sleepy in the opening because he knew his openings very well. And his thing was, but then I will be very sharp and alert in the fourth hour. So you can do different things, but I stuck to this most of my time. And in a dream world, you know what you want to play. Instead of still hesitating between 2 or 3 options at the last minute. But that's not in our control to some degree. I mean, you work on a problem. Sometimes your brain will give you the real problem at the last minute and you have no time to solve it. And sometimes it works smoothly. So that is not under control. I would say my sleep and routine like that, I try to stick to.
Are you superstitious? Can you share a superstition of yours that you think is the silliest?
All chess players are superstitious. In fact, I think all people are superstitious, and I don't know why. In everything else, they are not superstitious. They'll tell you about science and how this is impossible, that's impossible. But anyway, let me not wear that shirt, or I will not use that pen. I had omelette yesterday at 9:15, and today I'm having it at 9:20. Will something go wrong? You can't help these thoughts. I think it's something about a performance anxiety that then you start. I found that superstition is something you can't help, even though I think it's very silly. Eventually, though, once I got into my 40s and so on, I understood that I won and lost with the shirt too many times for it to be anything, for there to be any connection. So the hell with it. But before it used to matter. And it's eerie. There are some shirts. There's one red and black one which I wear quite often. Score is just amazing, and some of the best games of my life as well I've played. It's uncanny. That one, it might be in the book. I think there's a photo of that book, Mine Master, if you have one rolling around.
The one?
Maybe, is it mine?
No, that's not the book. It's talking about the Maya Master.
Yeah, the other one. Yeah, no, there is that book, and I can show you that picture. And sometimes I think is there actually something to it, but probably it goes in the opposite direction. I feel happy that I do well. But I'm getting better at not being superstitious because too many things have gone wrong as well, and you understand. It's
Madras, Manila, Madrid. Which city would you associate most with having contributed to your chess success?
Madras is obvious. Manila was an important part, but it was when I was 9 years old, so after a while it's harder to relate to. But it definitely got me deeper into the game, I think, because there was so much chess activity for Asia then in Manila, then I benefited from that. Madrid, very important because during the point in my career where I was at the top, I was living there, and it gave me access to most of the world's best tournaments with a very short flight, and access to a lot of my opportunities and things like that. So Madrid was very late stage. Madras obviously, and Manila as well, very important because when you're 9, you get deep into something. But yeah, all MA series.
Kasparov, Karpov, Kramnik. Who would you like see playing today against maybe the current crowd of candidates, participants?
Maybe the oldest, but again, the question has to be: I assume you mean Karpov at his best?
Yes,
best.
yes,
Yeah.
of course.
I think Karpov would be most interesting because he's completely pre-computer era. in fact, he went through the computer era without using it. So, because he's a 1950s guy, so very much. Kasparov used the computer a lot for the last decade of his chess, and I still use it, and Kramnik as well does a lot of work with the computer. But I think with Karpov, the contrast will be the greatest, so I'd like to see that.
You've spoken about all three of these in your book. Talent / aptitude, learning, luck. Of course, we can't really rank these, but could you talk about how important these are, and how they entwine with each other?
So training gives you more options. Training makes you more predictable, less wild swings. So if you're good at something, you can count on it, and because you count on it, you can enter that area. And because you enter that area confidently, you do better, and it becomes a reinforcing thing. Talent gives you the ability to learn more, take in more, which gives you more options. When you can often play multiple matches in a day, especially tie breaks, and I've often found the person who wins is the one who's able to say, okay, A, B, and C are not working. Let me go with F and see what that turns out. You have more options to try. The more rigid you are, the fewer options you have. So typically your opponent will have neutralized 2 or 3 things, and then you can swing wildly somewhere else. Luck is decisive, but at least we tell ourselves it's the luck is caused by our talent. That because of your talent, you're in position to have the luck, and you're in position to take advantage of it. But it's if you replay events in your head, even my best performances, I think if one thing had been different, it could have been my most humiliating performance as well. Maybe this is a slight after the game scare, but it's also true that with very small modifications, if you remember how you felt the morning of a game that went very well, you'll know that there were so many things you dreaded, and inevitably the question that comes, well, if it had actually happened, how would you have coped? And you don't know. But roughly, I believe that talent increases your, and training increases your odds of everything.
The singer S.P. Balasubramaniam was one of your early sponsors.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about the relationship you had with him?
This was very nice. So at a certain point, there was something called the National Team Championship. And so every state would send a team, and even they allowed cities and districts to send teams. And I think certain public sector banks and things like that could field teams as well. And then there was this person in Madras, he was in Chennai district chess circles. A person called Arudra, and he quite well known in musicals. He passed away a very long time back. He thought it would be a good idea to send a bunch of youngsters. So I was 13, Vanessa was 14 or 15, and there were 2 or 3 others. And I thought it would be nice to send a young team called the Colts. And he said, I'm going to ask S.P. Balasubramaniam if he'll finance this team. So he asked, I think probably SPB did it for the relationship between him and Mr. Arudra was quite respected in musical circles and so, or cultural circles. And so he said, yes, of course, I'll do it. I don't know how much he knew about chess at that point. So he sent a team, and then miraculously this turned out to be my breakthrough. In the National Team Championship, I won the top board prize. So instead of coming back home as I had planned, I could then move on to a qualification tournament. And when I finished that qualification tournament, I could play the National Championship. And literally it changed my chess life. I went from being a sort of club player to one of the top players in the country within 3 or 4 months. It was a very big deal. And then many years later, I met Mr. Balasubramaniam at an airport in Hyderabad. And he smiled at me, and I went to him and said, sort of thing. I'm sure you won't remember, but he said, of course I remember, I sponsored your team. So that was very nice. Anyway, I was 13. I'll mention one funny story. My mother gave me 100 rupees, and even then, I don't think it was a large sum of money. It could have been less. I think it was 100 rupees. My mother gave me 100 rupees and said, give it. And for some reason, I didn't pay attention to exactly what she was saying, and I thought I had to give it to Mr. Balasubramanian. No, so I go to the event where the Scholes team is going to be announced, and I'm thinking, how do I go and give it to him? So I just couldn't bring myself to give it to him. Then I went back home, and I told my mother, no, I forgot to give the money to Mr. Balasubramanian. It's not for Balasubramanian, it's for this arbiter you were supposed to give it to him. But it worked out well that I didn't give it to him. If I'd given him 100 rupees after the event, what is going on? It's the first dividend, for sponsoring. But it would have been very funny. But I went back home and then my mother almost fell off.
Now on to some chess-related questions. India has been formidable for a while in chess, but is this the real coming of age moment, considering that they're hunting as a group and the candidates, which is just one round below the World Championship?
Very much. I mean, now it looks. I was in a sense an exception, but now it looks very much like the country itself is strong. You could remove any one of these players, and there are 6 others. And if you take away our 5 candidates or 5 top players we have, there's another 6 or 7 people who are slightly lower rated but could easily fill their shoes. And in fact, I think we will be one of the favorites for this year's Olympiad in Budapest and so on. So definitely now India is an established and widely acknowledged as one of the top powers in chess. And it's based on just a lot of depth. So something has fundamentally changed in that way.
It's quite possible that India's young grandmasters are facing nerves or are even intimidated with the sheer level they're competing at now. But do you feel that the absence of any past baggage has made them play without fear?
That could be true. In general, nerves are memories of things that have gone wrong in the past, and if you don't have that, you have a brief period when you're not questioning yourself or fighting with yourself. But I think they're also very innocent, that they're genuinely ambitious, and I think they've also not experienced gamesmanship and things like that. So it's a very nice place to be, at least for a while. And the other thing is, I think they feel the intense rivalry between each other. So they know if they slacken the pace, then maybe they'll be overtaken very fast. That must be a factor. They must be looking at each other constantly. So it's a different experience for them, because they can be having the best year of their life, and still another young Indian who used to, and for them it's hardwired because they were all competing as the sub-juniors. At 11 and 12, them and most of their parents met each other in those days. I think Gukesh and Prag and Arjun, all of them, their parents met at a very young age, so they know each other well. Then that rivalry is hardwired into you at a very early age. I'm curious sometimes how they experience chess, because I mean, experience the process.
How happy or satisfied are you with having kickstarted the whole chess revolution in India?
I'm very happy. I'm very proud. You want to make a difference in some area, and I think when I see so many Indians playing chess, you know that you made a difference. I'm definitely very happy. There are sometimes I think maybe I overdid it, but I mean, now they're all taking my records one by one and so on. But overall, I'm of course very proud, and mostly I feel detached because I'm really not that active anymore, and so it's nice to be able to enjoy all these events through there and so on. And obviously through my academy, I'm working with a lot of them.
Yeah, it'll take it 37 years for somebody to become, other than you, to be India number one. I'm sure.
And then it's 4 of them. I mean,
Yes. It just keeps
all
on
at
coming.
once. Yeah, when it rains, it pours. So.
Where do we go from here? Where does India go from here? Do you see a period where we will dominate chess like the Soviets did at one point of time?
No, we will not. No, but no country will ever dominate chess like the Soviets did, because that was very unique. Now computers have leveled everything so much that that kind of dominance will not happen again. However, we will have some of the best players in the world, and a lot of them, which means our team competitions, we're going to be very strong as well. In the long term, for the next 10 or 15 years, we'll have something to follow and root for in chess every single day, because if not one, it's going to be the other one. And every top tournament in chess, there's going to be someone that Indians can follow and enjoy. So in that sense, our presence in the sport is assured for 10, 12 years at least.
We probably have time for one or two questions if anybody has.
One question. See, Fischer, they used to say that when he's playing a chess, he considers it as a war, and when he loses that, he feels that he has been wounded. Did you ever feel like that? Or?
All the time. I think his assessment is fundamentally correct. There are games I lose, and I really think, what's the point of living? Nothing else seems to matter at that point. And it profoundly wounds your ego, because something you're capable of and you really think you can be good at, and you can't understand how you can. I don't know whether I would say how it can let you down, or you can let yourself down. That's the thing. But at some level, you fail, and then it can take a day or two. But some of these games scar you for years, even your life. There are games I still, when I see the position, I don't even want to remember the rest of the game, and I just squirm when I see that position, because. And I look at the pleasant ones, and those I take for granted. So Bobby was completely right in that sense. But I mean, he was not the first one to make the observation, but he was the first one to whom other people listened to.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Kochnoy also famously said once, "It's not chess is not part of life; it is life." Oh no, he said chess is not less important than life; it's more important than life.
Let me ask another one. How easy or difficult is it for you to transition to the new role at FIDE and commentating? Like, I know that you're still passionate about the game and you're still playing, but there's still a shift in how you.
There are some mixed emotions. There are moments when I want to get there and play and just show these guys how it's done. But mostly I'm relieved not to be making the blunders. Like I said earlier, the games that haunt you. And quite often when I'm commentating and somebody is making a pig's breakfast of their game, I live through it myself. I can literally see myself doing something similar, having experienced something similar, and for a few moments there in the commentary box, I think the players cannot understand how much sympathy I have for them, because I can literally see myself doing the same thing, and I tell myself it's so good I'm not playing. And so being in commentary is a relief. Occasionally there's a pang of, oh, I wish I could be playing there now. The emptiness comes in the end, when you realize all you've been doing at the tournament is commentating. But while the tournament's going on, I'm so happy to watch them suffer.
So, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, the IIT Madras alumni, indebted to you.